طيب الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. طيب, so we talked about three major objectives that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants couples to get out of marriage. So what's the problem? The problem is that many Muslim marriages are achieving anything but these objectives. They're anything but tranquil, loving, and merciful. So we have these objectives, but those objectives are not being achieved. Rather, the opposite is being produced. So the problem is that we, as husbands and wives, we need to get back to being garments for one another. We need to get back to living with each other in a manner that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we need to introduce or bring back the tranquility, the love, and the mercy that's supposed to be in Muslim marriages. And so now the question comes, how do we do that? How do we do that? How do we get less of this? How do we eliminate this and introduce more of this? Basically, ikhwan, when people approach this topic, usually they approach it with what I like to call the traditional method. And I remember my teachers used to say this all the time. One particular teacher that I had used to say this all the time. He used to say, "Az-zawaj, huquq, wa wajibat." He said, marriage is rights. Marriage is huquq, entitlements, rights, and wajibat, duties. That's what marriage is. The man has entitlements, he has duties. The woman has rights, and the woman has duties. They wrap their head around that. Each one knows what they're supposed to do. They do that, everything will be fine. Al-hayatu jamila wal yawm jamil. Right? That's what they used to say. And I used to believe that and teach that. But regretfully, I just think there's a lot more now, after gaining some age and some experience and a little bit of wisdom along the way. I just think it's a lot more to it than that. And that this approach has its pros and cons. So from the pros side, obviously we need to know what our duties are. We need to know that in order to fulfill them, right? So yeah, if a person says, hey, we're going to solve the problems in marriages by what? Talking about rights and responsibilities, duties, etc., entitlements, then yeah, there's some sensibility to that, because you need to know what your duties are so you can fulfill them. And maybe the fact that you're not fulfilling your duties, that's why there's a problem in the marriage. So yeah, that's reasonable. Conversely, you also need to know what your entitlements are, so you don't ask for something, demand something that you're not entitled to, which creates what? Tension and problems. Yeah, so that makes it sensible. But is that all it is? Is that all that it is? No, if you take that approach, in my mind, that's how you teach, that's what you tell couples who are in crisis, then I think what that leads to, some of the cons, is scorekeeping. And we're going to talk about this in more detail, but just briefly, scorekeeping means you keep this running tally of what you gave versus what they gave. And is what they gave reciprocal to what you gave? And if it's not reciprocal, then that means you're one up on them. They owe you, right? And anything you do beyond that is a favor. And so when you have that attitude of what? Scorekeeping, then what ends up happening is that when you don't feel that what they're doing is reciprocating what you're doing, what you're investing and putting in is not. So basically what happens is that through this scorekeeping, resentment is created. That basically, hey, I did this and you only did this. And that those two don't add up. And you're always what? You're always underachieving, underinvesting. I'm giving more and you're giving less. That attitude creeps into the person's mind, and with it, the resentment and the bitterness and the feeling that there's some unfairness. And that creates to what? Creates tension, animosity, ill feelings, and ill will that contradict and actually undermine the love and tranquility and mercy that the marriage is supposed to produce. Right? So that's one of the cons of always talking about what? Rights and duties, entitlements, responsibilities. Doing that creates what? Creates this scorekeeping. The second con, that this talk about rights and responsibilities, it works for those who they don't know, they're unaware what their duties, what their entitlements are. They don't know that. And so, they're having problems because what? The husband is not fulfilling his responsibilities. The wife is not giving the husband his due rights. They're having problems because of that. That works for them. What about a couple that, I know what his rights are or her rights are. I know what my responsibilities are. I know what I'm entitled to and what I'm not entitled to, but I don't know how to give it to them. I have some obstacles that stand in my way of what? Of achieving what's required of me. That's telling them that these are his rights. These are his rights. That's not going to what? Enable them to do what? To practice it. It's not going to give them incentive to practice it. It's just like, for example, you have a person who's addicted to a substance. They're addicted to a substance, and you tell them that addiction is bad, addiction is bad, addiction is bad. You tell them that every day for a month. Is that going to make them be able to overcome their addiction? No. You're going to have to tell them how they can treat themselves, overcome the dependency, and leave it. You're going to have to teach them something beyond just what telling them that, something that probably they already what? They already know. طيب ثم بعد ذلك, another con is that the objectives of marriage, the things that marriage is supposed to achieve, are not limited to what? To the fulfillment of rights. And just knowing your husband's rights or your wife's rights, will that necessarily introduce love and mercy in the marriage? Or do they go hand in hand? No. And since marriage is about more than just doing your job, it's about making the other person feel loved, making that person feel compassion, making that person feel at ease. There's got to be more to solving the problems in marriages than just what? Reciting a list of what? Entitlements and a list of duties. طيب ثم بعد ذلك, last but not least, one of the cons of this approach is that many cases, and I've seen this miraran, is that when you tell couples in crisis, these are his rights, these are his duties. These are your rights, these are your duties. When you do that, the couples come to think that that's all marriage is. They think that's all it is, and as a result, that's all they do is try to what? Make sure they're what? Fulfilling that or doing that. And they forget about what? The fact that I'm supposed to be a libas for him. I'm supposed to live with him in a way which is considered acceptable. I'm supposed to what? Introduce foster love, mercy, tranquility, compassion, etc. So we're going to take a little bit different approach as opposed to the traditional method. And what we're going to do is we're going to take what I like to call a objective-centered approach. That what we have to do is bear in mind, da'iman wa abadan, all the time, we have to bear in mind what we talked about in the previous segment. What does Allah want us as couples to get out of marriage? And then what does Islam teach us that we should do? How does Islam teach us to behave in order to what? Achieve those objectives. So what were the objectives again, ya ikhwan? The objectives were to be what? Libas. And we talked about what that means. The objectives are to live with each other in a way which is what? Acceptable to everyone. Such a way that, hey, people, they say, hey, that's a good couple. I envy them. I envy what they have. And last but not least, he wants it to create what? Tranquility, love, and mercy. So what we are always looking to figure out is what does the Kitab, the Quran, the Sunnah, and common sense. Yes, in this case, common sense is a source. What does the Quran, the Sunnah, and common sense tell us we should do, how we should behave in order to achieve what? These objectives. Our approach is an objective-based approach, objective-centered approach. It's all about what? Achieving what? The objective by any means necessary, right? So, that being said, what are some of those means? What are some of the things that we need to do? The first one is treat your spouse as you would like to be treated. Treat your spouse as you would like to be treated. We're all aware of the hadith, collected by Bukhari, Muslim authority of Anas, in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you truly believes that he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. But this is true for your brother who is not what? Related to you. It's even more true for people who are related to you, including the person who's what? Who's married to you. Okay? That you have to love for that person what you love for yourself. We also had the hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr collected by Muslim, in which the Prophet instructed the person who wants good in the hereafter. He said, وَيَأْتِ إِلَى النَّاسِ مَا يُحِبُّ أَنْ يُؤْتَى إِلَيْهِ. And let him give people the treatment that he himself would like to receive. So again, if this is true for our Muslim brothers and sisters in general, it's even more true and applicable to those who are closest to us, especially our spouses. And so what does this mean? This means that you have to acknowledge that your partner is not just an extension of you, solely present to make you happy, but rather they are a separate person which has or who has their own needs and wants which are equally important and equally valuable to them. Just like you have needs and wants which are important and valuable to you, they have needs and wants which are valuable or important and valuable to them. And you have to realize that. And you can't be dismissive of that. So it's just about me, it's about what I want and about my happiness. And you just do everything in your power to make me happy and everything will be. No, that won't work. Because they have wants and they have needs as well. So it's incumbent. And we see this in the Quran itself, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. Says in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 228, and women have rights over their husbands, similar to those which their husbands have over them, in accordance with what is universally accepted. Men have rights, women have rights. Men have wants, women have needs. And they have to what? They have to basically mutually fulfill those wants. And it can't be one of them getting everything they want and the other one's wants being cast by the wayside. Ibn Abbas, he commented on this verse and he said, وَإِنِّي أُحِبُّ أَنْ أَتَزَيَّنْ لِامْرَأَتِي كما أحب أن تتزين لي. He said, I love to beautify and adorn myself for my wife, just as I love that she beautifies and adorns herself for me. Ibn Abbas is saying, I believe that I have to treat her the way I want to be what? Treated. Okay? Ibn Abbas understood from this verse that if you want something from your wife, be prepared to what? To give it. واضح؟ طيب. The next one, don't keep score. And we talked briefly about what keeping score means. And the reason why you shouldn't keep score is because, one, it indicates a corrupt intention. That you only give in order to what? To receive. In Islam, we don't give to receive, we give to what? To earn Allah's pleasure. That's it. Whether the person gives, they don't give, they reciprocate, they don't reciprocate, we still what? We still give because it pleases Allah. Also, when you start keeping a score and you feel like what you do doesn't add up to what your partner did, or what your partner did doesn't add up to what you did, then what it tends to happen is people will go on strike. People will go on strike, right? And they won't fulfill their obligations until they feel that their demands are met, or that the two sides are what? In step. But see, in Islam, the rights of others are not predicated, the fulfillment of the rights of others are not predicated on them fulfilling our rights. But when you keep score, that's what you start to what? Think. I don't have to do that because you didn't do this. It doesn't work like that. You have to do what you're required to do, whether they do or not. That's why you just do what? You take the score, you take the scoreboard, you take the tally out of your mind. And you do what? You do for Allah's sake. Also, when you keep score, you're undermining one of your objectives. And obviously, if we said we're going to make our approach to marriage objective-based, then we can't do something, we're going to do whatever it takes to achieve these objectives. We can't do something which undermines the objectives. And when you keep score, does that make the person love you more? When you're always saying, hey, I did this, when are you going to do something? Hey, that doesn't add up. Hey, you're falling short. Hey, that makes them love you. That makes them feel that you're having mercy towards them, you have compassion towards them. I'll give you an example I'm going to read to you, and you tell me how this would make you feel. If somebody said, I keep a running tally of the things my partner does, leisure activities, times where they just what? Kick back. Outings with friends, times that they got to what? Spend with their buddies and do whatever buddies do. The amount of time spent with our children. Okay? How many times did you take them for soccer? How many times did you take them for Quran class? How many times did you take them for the Arabi? Right? And chores completed. How many times did you load the dishwasher and turn it on? I keep a running tally of all of that. I never let my spouse get the upper hand. I'm going to ask you honestly, does that sound like a marriage? I never let my spouse get, that sounds like, I don't know, someone you're in competition with. Maybe you're at work and there's a colleague and you don't want them to get like one up on you because you guys are competing for some type of promotion or something. But this person says about their spouse, I never let my spouse get the upper hand. And when they mess up, they make a mistake, I never give them a free pass. I always take them to what? Take them to task. If I do my spouse a favor, yeah, Juan, is there such thing in marriage as what? A favor. Hey, remember, I picked up your shirts from the cleaners that one day. When I went a whole block out of my way to pick up those shirts. Are you going to compensate me for the gas that it took me to go an extra block? That was probably a whole half cent of gas that I wasted to go out of my way, round the corner to get those shirts. If I do a favor, that's wallahi, ikhwan, there's no such thing as what? A favor in marriage, man. It's the wrong mindset altogether. There's no such thing as a favor in marriage. It says, if I do my spouse a favor, I make sure to remind them every chance I get and mention the great inconvenience it caused me. Somebody tells you that, you think they love you? Does that make you feel, oh, I feel so loved by that person? That person has so much compassion for me. That person is so kind to me. Doesn't it? Undermines. It makes you feel a great deal of what? Pressure. That I can't make any mistakes, and you can't live like that. You can't function like that in a marriage. You can't. طيب ثم بعد ذلك, another important point is lift your partner up rather than put them down. It says strong people don't put others down, they lift them up. That's a type of weakness when you're always what? Insulting somebody. You're always telling them what they don't have, what they don't give, what they didn't do, what they should have done, what they'll never be. That doesn't make you strong, that makes you weak. You're a bully. You're a bully, basically. And that goes for men and women. Women can be just as abusive, if not more so abusive than men. And typically thinking, when you think of abuse, people think of a man in one of those A shirts, right? Sweating and pounding his wife, right? That's what people think. They think that abuse only flows one way. Nah. Abuse can flow the opposite way. That a woman can be abusive and no, she's not wearing an A shirt and, beating her husband into a pulp, but she's beating with what? With words and insults and put downs. So in Islam, we're taught that we should lift our partner up rather than put them down. Because making insulting remarks and ridiculing your spouse is one of the fastest ways to introduce animosity, tension, resentment, and bitterness into your relationship. And all those run counterproductive to what you're trying to achieve. Love and mercy. People don't feel loved when you insult them. It's not compassionate to put somebody down. All right? If you're trying to make them love you, you can't do that by saying something that will make them sad, make them feel insecure, make them feel inadequate. Okay? That's why the Prophet said in the hadith, he said, وَلَا تُقَبِّحْ. He said, do not say to your spouse, you're ugly. And although this is really specific, we can take from it a general rule that you don't say anything which is cruel or hurtful to your spouse. You're always going to try to find a positive way. If you have to criticize, you're going to try to find a positive way to what? To criticize. And the proof for that is established in the hadith in which the Prophet said, وَمَن يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لَيَصْمُتْ. He said, whoever believes in Allah on the last day, let him say that is which is good, or be quiet. Got something good to say? Tafadhal. Got nothing good to say? Then just what? Be quiet. Or find a good way to say something which in other circumstances would be what? Considered negative, but you find a good way to say it. So this is the thing that, we have to learn how to lift our partners up and not put them down. And say nice things rather than derogatory things. And is it true, ya ikhwan, that you can say something negative in a nice way? Can you say something negative in a nice way? I think so. So for example, you could tell someone, there's a famous anecdote about a king who was ill. And so he called a physician I think he was ill and he had a dream. And in the dream, I forget what he saw in the dream, but he asked a scholar to interpret the dream. And so the scholar interpreted the dream and said, you're going to die and all of your relatives are going to inherit your wealth. They're going to take everything. All of this is going to go to your relatives. And so when he said that, the king got angry. and he had him arrested, had him put in jail. So after a while, his anger subsided, and he had the dream again. And he asked another scholar to come, and that scholar said, interpret the dream, and he said, your relatives are going to live long, and they're going to prosper, and you're going to be the cause of their prosperity. And the king what? He smiled. He liked that. He's like, thank you, I appreciate that. And he gave him what? A mukafa'a. He gave him what? A reward for that. Now I'm going to ask you honestly, did they say the same thing? They said the same thing. But one said it in a way which was, kind of harsh and hard to swallow. And another said it in a way which was more palatable. So they're saying you're going to die. But one said in a way which is positive, the other said in a way which is negative. And this is not something, again, as we talked about earlier, that some of the akhlaq are muktasaba. Some of the akhlaq are something you have to what? You have to develop it. You have to learn it. This is not something that comes natural for everyone. Some people are very blunt, very candid. That's just how they are. I just tell it like it is. I just shoot straight. And they think that's a good quality. But yeah, from the indication of the hadith of the Prophet, it's not. Say, if you can't shoot straight and say it nice, then don't say it. So it's something that we have to learn. That, for example, wife says, so what do you think about the biryani that I made? Right? Say, man, this biryani tastes like cement. It tastes awful. It tastes like dog food. I'm going to ask you honestly, that's just not a nice thing to say, is it? And that put down is not likely to be well received by the wife. Could make her go off in a corner and just cry, right? Okay. So that being said, we have to learn, to bite our tongues and maybe go off and think about what's the best way to word what we're going to say before we say it. And if we can't find a polite, respectful, nice, kind way to say it, then we just what? Remain quiet. But don't put your partner down. Always try to do what? Lift them up and say positive things. The next one is you can catch more flies with honey. You can catch more flies with honey. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in the hadith, عليكم بالرفق فإن الرفق لا يكون في شيء إلا زانه ولا ينزع من شيء إلا شانه. He said, I implore you to be gentle. Gentleness never accompanies anything except that it beautifies it, and is not removed from anything except that it makes it detestable. He said in another hadith, إن الله رفيق يحب الرفق يعطي على الرفق ما لا يعطي على العنف وما لا سواه. He said, verily Allah is gentle and He loves gentleness. He gives through gentleness what He does not give through harshness or any other approach besides it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He informs us in the Quran of the effect that being gentle and lenient can have upon others, even those who are themselves harsh and brutal. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran the effect of being gentle. Why have we been encouraged to be gentle and lenient and kind in dealing with other people? What's going to be the benefit? What will it produce? He says, فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. He says, you will find that the one who had previously been your most bitter enemy will become your nearest and dearest friend. That basically, you can win people over with what? With this kindness and modest and leniency and gentleness. طيب ثم بعد ذلك the correlation between this kindness and gentleness and civility, the correlation between that and the feelings of love, loyalty, and affection, which we're trying to achieve, our objectives, are not only supported by the Quran and Hadith that we just mentioned, but also by common sense. Ya ikhwan. People are more likely to respond positively and get along when they are handled with care, treated with respect, and dealt with in a gentle manner. While harshness, on the other hand, will typically cause people to do what? To run away from you. People are going to be repulsed by your harshness, and they're not going to want to be in your company. That includes your husband or your wife. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about this reality with the kindest, the nicest, the greatest of mankind, the person with the most magnetic personality. That even if he, with all of his magnetism, even if he had been harsh, people of what? Would have run away from him. So how about people who don't possess that quality? Allah says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. And it was but by the mercy of Allah that you dealt with them gently. Had you been strident and cruel-hearted, they would have fled from about you. The Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about who? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With all of his magnetism, he had a very attractive personality. Even his enemies, what? Were attracted to him. With all of that magnetism, if he had been harsh, people would have what? Fled from about him. This is even, so if this is true about him, it's even more true about those who what? Who don't possess that quality. So you want husband, wife, you guys want to be what? Close, like Allah tells you need to be close, like a lihaf, close. Then you need to know that you have to what? Treat your spouse with what? With kid gloves. You can catch more flies with honey. ثم بعد ذلك, accentuate the positive. Now this is essential because it's impossible to be happy in a relationship and to achieve those objectives if you always have this cup half full mentality. If you always have this cup half full mentality. Grass is green on the other side mentality. If all you can see is what your spouse doesn't have, what they won't do, what they won't give, what they'll never be, if that's all you can see is the negatives, and you can't see the positives, then you'll never be able to be happy. If you can't accentuate the positive, you'll never be able to be happy because no spouse is what? Is perfect. No spouse is perfect. And every human being, by virtue of being human, is going to what? Have some imperfection, some idiosyncrasy, so to speak. Because al-kamalu lillahi wahda, that Allah is the only one who's perfect. He's the only one who has no flaws and no imperfections. So if you want to be happy, you have to learn how to what? To appreciate the good things that your spouse has as opposed to harping on the things that they don't, the bad things that they have or the good things that they don't have. Which is why the Prophet said in the hadith, لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة إن كره منها خلقا رضي منها آخر. Said, let not any believing man despise a believing woman. And it goes also, let not a believing woman despise a believing man. If he dislikes some quality that she has, then he is undoubtedly pleased by another. So for example, let's say that a man has a wife and she's homely. A man has a wife and she's homely. You guys know what homely means? You don't have to say it, just do you know what it means? Everybody knows what homely means. Okay, good. So a man has a wife who's homely, and that's a negative thing in his mind. But she's a great cook. She's a great homemaker. She always what? Dresses nice and smells nice. Keeps the home nice and clean. Takes really good care of the children. She has all these what? Positives. He shouldn't do what? Harp on the negative. Right? He shouldn't harp on the negative thing. Well, yeah, she does. Yeah, but she's homely, man. Right? طيب, a man has a wife who what? She's not the best cook, not the best cleaner. Doesn't keep the house all that clean, and he can cook better than she does. Right? Everything she cooks is burnt, right? She doesn't, we say all the time, can you burn? But we don't mean that literally, man. But she burns everything, right? But she's beautiful. She has awesome character. Very religious, very committed. When she recites Quran, he cries like a baby. So he's got to focus on what? On those positives. And he's got to stop focusing on what? On those negatives. Got to accentuate what? Accentuate the positive. ثم بعد ذلك, spend quality time. Ya ikhwan, it's difficult, if not impossible, for two people to solidify their relationship. They're trying to strengthen their relationship. They're trying to basically build a solid structure and foster love and mercy and compassion and tranquility as Allah instructs them to. It's hard for them to do that when one of them is always what? Absent. One of them is always absent. And yes, Sahih, they always say absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yeah, occasional absence. Occasional absence, yeah. Husband goes off on a trip for a weekend. When they get back together, it's just like, man, I missed you. I missed your cooking. I missed your jokes. I missed, waking up to, a hot cup of tea or whatever it is. Yeah, so yeah, distance can make the heart grow fonder. Absence, yeah, if it's occasional. But it shouldn't be something which is what? It's regular. Because what that does is what? Doesn't give them a chance to what? To build a bond. They never get a chance to what? To really connect, to understand each other, etc., etc. And what it can actually do is cause them, instead of coming closer together, to drift apart. And perhaps that's why the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, when a woman came and she asked the Prophet ﷺ about a proposal that was given to her by a man by the name of Abu Jahm. She said, this man has proposed to me, Abu Jahm, so what do you think, Ya Rasulullah? And the Prophet said, Amma Abu Jahm, فَلَا يَضَعْ عَصَاهُ عَنْ عَاتِقِهِ. He said, as for Abu Jahm, he never takes his staff off of his shoulder. Some of the scholars of hadith, they said that this has one of two possible meanings. And one of them is that he was dhu asfar. He was a person who what? He traveled a lot. That he wouldn't come back from a journey before he was what? Off to another one. Okay? So as if the Prophet is telling her, don't marry him because, you won't be able to have a relationship. It's like, it'll be like not having a husband. Okay? So the Prophet discouraged her because this person liked to what? Liked to travel frequently. And the Prophet ﷺ, as busy as he was, you have to think that the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't have just one job, one responsibility. The Prophet ﷺ was the messenger of Allah and the principal teacher of the ummah in all affairs religious. ثم بعد ذلك, he's the joint chief of staff. He's the head of the army. He has to plan and strategize for expeditions. On top of that, he's a husband. On top of that, he's a father. On top of that, he's a counselor. On top of that, he's the imam. He has to lead the prayers, right? It's like the Prophet wore so many hats. He had all these responsibilities that he had to juggle. But he was very keen, in spite of all of this, to do what? To spend quality time with his family. Ibn al-Qayyim, he writes, وَكَانَ إِذَا صَلَى الْعَصْرَ دَارَ عَلَى نِسَائِهِ فَدَنَا مِنْهُنَّ وَاسْتَقْرَأَ أَحْوَالَهُنَّ. He says each day after the Asr prayer, he would go around and visit all of his wives, drawing close to each one of them and asking her about her condition and needs. The Prophet made it a point, after Asr, I'm going to what? Put all my responsibilities to the side and tend to what? My wives. Okay? Go around and meet each and every one of them, find out what their needs were, make sure everything was okay in the house, and then what? Check on the next one, then go back and resume his other duties and responsibilities. Ibn al-Qayyim goes on to say, وَيَجْتَمِعُ نِسَاؤُهُ كُلَّ لَيْلَةٍ فِي بَيْتِ الَّتِي يَبِيتُ عِنْدَهَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ فَيَأْكُلُ مَعَهُنَّ الْعَشَاءَ في بعض الأحيان, said that his wives used to gather in the house of the wife with whom the Prophet would spend the night, and they would eat dinner all together. So this would be an opportunity for him. He had to eat anyway. He's going to eat in the house of this woman who's going to spend the night with, but this opportunity now for me to see what? All of my wives again. We all come and we eat what? We eat al-asha, we eat the dinner together. Okay? Another opportunity for the Prophet to spend what? Quality time with his family. And then, ثُمَّ تَنْصَرِفُ كُلُّ وَاحِدَةً إِلَى مَنْزِلِهَا. And then each of the wives would do what? Would go off and return to their homes, and the Prophet would remain in that household. وَكَانَ إِذَا صَلَّى الْعِشَاء يَدْخُلُ مَنْزِلَهُ يَسْمُرُ مَعَ أَهْلِهِ قَلِيلًا قَبْلَ أَنْ يَنَامَ يُؤَانِسُهُمْ بِذَلِكَ. So once he had prayed Salat al-Isha, he would then enter his home and chat with what? With his wife. He wouldn't just go to sleep. He would do what? He would chat with her. Another way out, it's quality time. It's me and you, quiet, everything's quiet. Let's what? Let's chat. Let's talk. How was your day? What did you do? Who did you see? Where did you go? The Prophet would what? Chat with his wives. And he would be interested in what? In their day. He wouldn't be that husband who, yeah, so how was your day? And she's like, well, you know what? You know what happened to me? Oh, that's nothing compared to what happened to me. No. He was actually interested in what they had to say, or he would, I'm sure he wouldn't do this, but we should do this, feign interest in what they have to say. Don't be the one who's like, oh, you're just in the house anyway. You know, who cares? Let me tell you what happened to me. No. The Prophet, what? Would listen to them, would chat with them. يُؤَانِسُهُمْ بِذَلِكَ. And in this way, he would entertain and what? Amuse them in this way. He would make them feel important, make them feel special. Another way that the Prophet would spend quality time, because in the world in which we live in, most of us are out there, trying to basically earn a living, and a lot of times that's not always a 9-to-5, endeavor. That what ends up happening is that we spend a lot of time, working on projects, going early in the morning, late at night, maybe having to go into office on the weekend, whatever it is. We're very busy with our careers, our professions, etc. And so it's not always easy to what? Find time for quality time. So what the Prophet ﷺ would do, he would be very innovative in the ways and approaches he would take to spend quality time with his family. So one of the things he would do is that if there was something that they normally would do separately, that they could do together, then he would do it what? He would do it with them. So for example, sometimes he would be in the home, and they would be doing chores. So they're off in a part of the house, or they're off wherever doing chores. Or they're outside doing chores. So rather than sit in the house and be separate from them, he would use this opportunity as this is an opportunity for, I'm here anyway. So why don't we do the chore together? We'll do the chore together, and this is the way that we can spend what? Spend quality time. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she mentions that the Prophet, when he was in the house, كَانَ يَكُونُ فِي مِهْنَةِ أَهْلِهِ. That when the Prophet was in the house, he would be what? In the service of his family. Doing the chores along with them, side by side, to what? To spend time with them. Okay? But if the salat came in, فَإِذَا حَضَرَتِ الصَّلَاةِ خَرَجَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. But when the adhan was given for the prayer, he would what? He would leave for the prayer. He wouldn't, ignore his religious responsibilities, but when he was in the home, he would use that time to spend with his wives. So for example, a husband in our context, he could, after dinner, go and what? Help his wife with the dishes. However that may be. Maybe that she washes, he rinses and dries. Or they use a dishwasher, they both rinse, and she rinses and he loads the dishwasher. And they can do what? They can talk and discuss and share jokes or whatever while they're doing that. And they're actually doing what now? Spending quality time. Like maybe she usually goes to the grocery store and does all the shopping on Saturday, but he's home, okay? So rather than her just go out by herself, he does what? He accompanies her, and that way they can talk and discuss and get caught up and spend some quality time. So these are some of the ways that the Prophet ﷺ guided us to be innovative in our quest to what? Spend quality time with our families. Like, what else? What time is it now? It's 9:10. And the salat is 10 minutes, right? Okay, it's like, I think you guys are tired. A lot of people nodding off and yawning. So do you guys want to stop there? You sure? Okay, he spoke for you guys. Khalas. So if you get mad, blame him. Khalas. So the next point is be affectionate. Be affectionate. طيب يا اخوان, kisses, hugs, hand holding, and other expressions of affection, they don't cost us anything. Free of charge. Don't cost you anything. So why are we so stingy when it comes to offering them to our spouses? Brothers and sisters, your partner doesn't just want you to tell them that you love them. They don't want to hear that you love them. They want to feel your love. They want you to show them that you love them. And they don't want these words to just be what? Words. If you don't show them that love, that affection, that compassion, those words will be just that. They'll just be what? Words with little effect or no real meaning. And the Prophet ﷺ, he certainly understood this. And he was our example in this as he's our example in everything. The Prophet was a very affectionate man with his wives. So we have Ibn al-Qayyim who writes again, he says, وَكَانَتْ إِذَا شَرِبَتْ مِنْ لِنَا أَخَذَهُ فَوَضَعَ فَمَهُ فِي مَوْضِعْ فَمِهَا وَشَرِبْ. The Prophet ﷺ, he would be with Aisha radiallahu anha, and if she drank from a vessel, the Prophet would take the vessel from Aisha and he would turn it to the place where what? She had been drinking, and put his lips where her lips had been. وَكَانَ إِذَا تَعَرَّقَتْ عَرَقًا. And the Prophet ﷺ, if she ate from meat on a bone, like a lamb shank, right? If she ate from a bone that had meat on it, أَخَذَهُ فَوَضَعَ فَمَهُ مَوْضِعْ فَمِهَا. He would take the bone and eat from the spot where she had previously been eating. وَكَانَ يَتَّكِئُ فِي حِجْرِهَا وَيَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنَ وَرَأْسَهُ فِي حِجْرِهَا. And he used to lie down with his head in her lap and recite the Quran while his head was what? Resting in her lap. وَرُبَّمَا كَانَتْ حَائِضًا. Even if she was on her menses, he would still what? Lie with his head in her lap. Okay, and that's a very affectionate, or a very good demonstration of what? Of affection, especially in that state, right? وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُهَا وَهِيَ حَائِضٌ فَتَتَّزِرْ ثُمَّ يُبَاشِرُهَا وَكَانَ يُقَبِّلُهَا وَهُوَ صَائِمٌ. So the Prophet ﷺ also, when she would be on her menses, he would still be what? Affectionate with her. He would still hug her. He would still embrace her, right? He would be affectionate with her. And he would even kiss her while he was what? Fasting. And he would sometimes hold hands with one of his wives in the presence of the others. He would even hold what? Hold hands. Very affectionate man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he's what? As Allah says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have in the Messenger of Allah the most excellent example. But this is important. I mention this specifically. Why? Because you have a lot of couples where they don't show any affection whatsoever. And the only affection that they show is affection in what? In that private quarters in the household when the lights go out. That's the only affection they show. And this is wrong, one, because it's not consistent with what? The guidance of the Prophet ﷺ. It also doesn't foster what? The love and the mercy that Islam wants the marriage to foster. Also, you're sending the wrong message to your children. And you actually have children who will say, I never saw my dad kiss my mom. I never saw him hug her. I never saw him hold her hand. And they end up getting married and behaving the same what? the same way. And the way it might have worked for his mom and dad, it doesn't work for what? It doesn't work for that lad. It doesn't work for him and the woman that he chooses to marry, who sees his absence, lack of affection as an indication that what? That there's a problem. So it creates what? Tension in the marriage. They need to see it so they know how to what? They know how to be with their own families. And there's no aid, there's no shame. Where did the shame come from? It came from culture, not from deen. There's no shame if a husband does what? If he embraces his wife. If he comes in and gives her a little peck on the cheek, there's no shame in that. But a lot of us in our mind, oh, that's shameful. It's lewd. It's uncouth. It's disrespectful. It's not. And the Prophet ﷺ was a very affectionate man. And we're not teaching our children affection by what? By being what? Robots. Tayyib. We will stop there, inshallah ta'ala. And if you guys have any questions or comments, we'll take those. And then we'll pick it up tomorrow. Just remind me, live according to your means. We'll pick it up from there. Live according to your means. Tayyib, any questions, comments, complaints, critiques?
You said you're like affectionate in front of your kids. But there's like a limit to it, right? Like you don't become overly, right?
I mean, obviously there's a limit to everything. There's a limit to everything.
You have like some people that are like, oh, they don't know that, I guess, that line because.
I mean, does that really exist? I mean, do we really know an example of people who are, quote unquote, crossing the line in front of their children?
Some people do. I've seen it.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Crossing the line in front of the kids, what do you think it is? Because some people think that you shouldn't kiss in front of your kids. So is that crossing the line in you?
Kissing in front of kids is like one thing with like playing footsie in front of kids, you know, like that.
See, I think what's going to happen too is that people are going to have different views. Okay, at any rate, people are going to have different views about where that line should be drawn. But let's just say this, at the end of the day, wherever you draw the line because of your own personal perspective on what's going overboard, let's just all agree that showing affection is one of those things that will do what? Achieve our objective. And it's certainly something which is what? Permitted in Islam. As far as what's considered excessive and what's considered, allowable, that we're going to probably differ. We're not going to leave this majlis and agree on that, I don't think. But we should show some affection in front of our children because we're teaching them in a roundabout way how to be affectionate as husbands and wives in the future. Yep. And it's hard if you've ever, and let me say this because this has come up a few times from people I talked to today and other occasions, is that people get into marriage and nobody teaches them, whether it's their parents or the community. Nobody teaches them how to be what? A husband, how to be a wife. And most people, they take whatever they know about relationships from what they saw in their households. There was no sit down with mom. There was no sit down with dad. Hey, son, this is how you be a good husband. Hey, daughter, this is how you be a good wife. That doesn't happen, but what they do is they kind of look and see what? How their mom conducted themselves, their dad conducted themselves, and how they what? Interacted with each other. And then they take that and they bring it into what? Their relationship. So now if you have, so now if you have a bride or a groom who they come into a relationship where they never saw a display of affection. And so they think that, you shouldn't do that. And they are very uncomfortable with any type of what? Affection. Then that's going to create problems. And this is not something uncommon, that they just don't know how to function. They don't know how to react. They don't know how to behave. And they are very non-receptive to any display of what? Affection. How does that make that groom feel? Or if it were vice versa, the bride feel? That every time they lean in for a kiss, that person's like, Stand back. What are you doing? I'm asking you, what do you think's going through their mind? Yeah, exactly. That there's something wrong with me. There's a problem. That's what they're thinking. Although that's not what it is. It's this person thinks that what? Inaccurately, erroneously, that this we shouldn't be doing that. You follow me? So again, that's why I said this is important, especially if we're not going to have those talks and discussions and actually teach them. If we're teaching them only by example, then it's important that our example is consistent with what? The sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that they see that so they can practice it themselves naturally. It's not something which is forced, something which is ingenuine, or something which they're totally resistive to. They're opposed to it, because that'll create problems. That will create problems, I assure you, and I've seen it. It will create problems. Do I have any other questions or comments? Going once, going twice, gone. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبي محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.